All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're going way back, ancient India,
Oh, cool.
for a deep dive into some Buddhist teachings. They're not just, interest in history.
Mm.
This stuff's like a roadmap, right?
Yeah,
For figuring out life's big questions.
for sure.
We're talking suffering, what causes it, and how to break free.
Huge topic.
Huge.
What I find so fascinating about these teachings is that they're not just like airy-fairy concepts.
Right.
They really give you a framework, a practical one, for understanding what it means to be human.
Okay, so let's back up a sec.
Okay.
What was the Buddha's whole deal with suffering anyway?
Well, before he reached enlightenment, he was really struck by how universal suffering is. Birth, old age, getting sick, death, the whole cycle.
Yeah.
She saw it everywhere, and it sparked this burning question in him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one text even quotes him saying, "Oh, when will it discern the escape?"
Wow. I feel that. I think everyone's had that moment where they're like, is this it?
Right. And what's amazing is he didn't just accept suffering as, like, inevitable.
No.
He was determined to find a way out.
Yeah.
And that's where his breakthrough of discernment comes in.
Okay.
He didn't just ask, why is there suffering? He asked, how?
Uh-huh.
And that led him to dependent origination.
Okay. Dependent origination. That sounds complicated.
Right.
Break it down.
It is a bit of a head scratcher, I'll admit, but it's so insightful. Think of it like a chain reaction.
Okay.
The Buddha identified 12 links in this chain, all connected, that explain how suffering starts and how it keeps itself going.
So it's not about blaming anyone. It's about understanding the cause and effect of what we go through.
You got it. Take craving. That's one of the links.
Okay.
We crave things, people,
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah.
We cling. And when we don't get what we want or lose what we have, we suffer.
Hold on. So even like my craving for that double chocolate fudge ice cream is contributing to suffering.
Well, maybe not the ice cream itself.
Okay.
It's the attachment to it.
Uh-huh.
See, this is what's brilliant about dependent origination. It shows us how our thoughts, feelings, actions, they're all part of how we experience the world.
So it's not some outside force making us suffer. We actually have some say in this.
Exactly. And that's where the power lies.
Okay.
By understanding how suffering arises, we start to see how to break free.
I'm starting to see the light here, but how do we actually do that? Break free, I mean, is there a guide, like steps?
You could say that.
Okay.
The Buddha discovered a path to liberation, the Noble Eightfold Path.
All right.
He described it like finding an ancient city,
Oh, okay.
long forgotten but perfectly preserved, like a glimpse into a time when people knew how to live in harmony.
An ancient city. I love that.
Yeah.
So what are the buildings, streets of this ancient path?
It's made up of 8 interconnected principles.
Okay.
Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration.
8. That's a lot.
It is.
But they all work together, right? Like pieces of a puzzle.
You got it. Each part supports the others, and together they create a framework for a life free from suffering.
Okay.
And speaking of a life free from suffering, have you heard the story of Suhata?
The name rings a bell. Wasn't he some kind of wandering seeker?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Suhata had been searching for truth, for enlightenment, for years, bouncing between different teachers and philosophies.
Yeah.
But when he heard the Buddha was nearing death, he felt this urgency to meet him, almost like he was running out of time.
I can only imagine that drive, that longing.
Oh, it was intense.
Wow.
Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, actually tried to turn him away at first.
Oh.
Thought the Buddha needed rest. But Suhata, he persisted.
Yeah.
He had so many questions.
So did he get to meet the Buddha?
He did. The Buddha, sensing Suhata's sincere desire for knowledge, agreed to see him.
Okay.
And their interaction is fascinating because it really gets to the core of the Buddha's teachings.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What happened when they finally met? What did they even talk about?
Well, Suhata, being the inquisitive seeker that he was, went straight for the big questions.
Yeah.
He wanted to know if all these other wandering teachers, guys like Purana Kassapa, Makali Gosala, had they really achieved the same level of understanding as the Buddha?
So he jumped right into a philosophical debate. Bold move.
He was definitely a man on a mission.
Wow.
But the Buddha's response was so typical of his teachings. Instead of getting caught up in egos and doctrines, he basically said, look, let's not get sidetracked by comparisons. I'll teach you the Dhamma directly.
That's interesting. He sidestepped the whole debate. Like, he knew real understanding comes from experience, not just arguments.
Exactly. And that leads to one of the Buddha's most powerful statements in these texts.
Okay.
He tells Suhata, other teachings are empty of knowledgeable contemplatives.
Whoa, that's a bold statement. What did he mean by that?
It's not that he was saying his teachings were the only right ones. It's about pointing to the fruits of his path. Living proof. Awakened beings who followed his teachings, who found liberation.
So basically, don't just take my word for it. Look at the results.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this is where Subhata's story takes a dramatic turn.
Okay.
He's so moved by the Buddha's words, his presence, that he decides to take the plunge.
What do you mean, take the plunge?
He asks to join the Sangha, the community of monks, right then and there.
Wow, I bet that threw everyone for a loop. Didn't new recruits usually have a probationary period?
You're exactly right. Traditionally, those who had belonged to other sects had to wait a while before being fully accepted. But the Buddha, he saw something in Subhata, recognized his sincerity, made an exception, let him join right away.
That's incredible. So what happened to Subhata after he joined the Sangha? Did he stick with it?
He did. And his story gets even more remarkable.
Okay.
But I think we should pause here for a minute, let you, absorb all this. We've covered a lot already.
Yeah, we have. From the Buddha's first encounter with suffering to his breakthrough with dependent origination, the discovery of the Eightfold Path, and now this Subhata character who seems to be on the fast track to enlightenment.
It's a lot.
Yeah. My mind is buzzing after that last part. The chain of causation, the Eightfold Path, Subhata's leap of faith. Whew.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and it's all connected. Remember we were talking about how dependent origination shows us we're not just like victims of circumstance.
Right. We have the power to change our experience.
Exactly. By changing our actions, our thoughts.
Right. And that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. It's like the Buddha's guidebook for breaking free from those negative patterns that cause suffering.
Right.
But 8 steps, I gotta be honest, it's a bit daunting.
It might seem that way at first, but it's really about cultivating a way of being, a way of seeing the world that leads to peace, to freedom.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in practice? Can we break down those 8 components a bit?
Sure.
Like, what does right view even mean?
So right view, that's the foundation. It's seeing the world through the lens of the Buddha's teachings, specifically the 4 Noble Truths. Do you remember those?
Vaguely. Suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the path to the end of suffering. Something like that.
You nailed it. Right view is recognizing that truth of suffering, understanding its roots, seeing that it can be overcome,
Okay.
and committing to that path to liberation.
So it's not about pretending suffering doesn't exist. It's about seeing it clearly and then figuring out how to move past it.
Exactly. And from that clear seeing, right resolve arises.
Okay.
That unwavering commitment to the path, to cultivate the qualities that lead to freedom.
So right view sets the stage, and right resolve is the fuel that keeps us moving forward.
Right.
What about the next steps? Right speech, right action. Those seem pretty straightforward, but I bet there's more to them than meets the eye.
You're right. It's not just about being nice or following rules. Right speech. It's about using your words skillfully, to encourage, to uplift, to speak truth with kindness and compassion.
So no gossiping, putting others down, that's a good start. But what about when being honest might hurt someone's feelings? How do we balance truth and compassion?
That's where discernment comes in. Right speech is considering the impact of your words before you speak.
Right.
Sometimes silence is the kindest thing.
Yeah.
Other times, a gentle truth spoken with love can be healing.
That makes sense. It's about being mindful of how powerful our words can be. What about right action then?
Right action is about aligning your actions with your values, living ethically, harmlessly, not causing harm to yourself or others. It's about making choices that create peace, well-being in the world.
So it's not just avoiding the big no-nos like stealing or killing. It's the little choices we make every day.
Precisely. It's about asking yourself, is this action creating harmony or disharmony?
Right.
Is it contributing to suffering or to liberation?
This is feeling really practical, even in today's world.
Yeah.
So we've got right view, right resolve, right speech, right action. What about right livelihood? Does that mean we all have to quit our jobs and become monks?
Not necessarily.
Okay, good.
The Buddha understood people need to make a living. Right livelihood is about making sure your work doesn't go against your values or contribute to other suffering.
Okay.
It's finding a way to support yourself that aligns with your commitment to the path.
So someone working in the arms industry might want to rethink their career choices.
Right. And it's not just about avoiding obviously harmful professions. It's bringing mindfulness and ethics to whatever work you do.
Yeah.
Can you do your work with integrity, with purpose?
Yeah.
Can you contribute positively to the world through it? Those are the questions Right Livelihood asks.
This is so interesting. I never thought about my 9 to 5 in terms of ethical alignment before. Okay, so we've covered 5 of the 8. What about right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration? Those sound a little more, how should I put it, esoteric.
They might sound that way, but they're incredibly practical, relevant to daily life. Right effort is about cultivating those wholesome qualities.
Okay.
Kindness, compassion, generosity, and letting go of the unwholesome ones. Greed, anger, hatred.
Yeah.
Actively shaping your mind, your heart in alignment with the path.
So mental and emotional weightlifting.
I like that analogy.
Right. Strengthening the good, weakening the bad.
It takes discipline, consistency,
Yeah.
but the rewards are huge. And right mindfulness, that's about paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
Becoming aware of your thoughts, feelings, sensations as they arise.
Isn't that what meditation is all about?
Yes, meditation is a powerful tool for cultivating mindfulness. But mindfulness isn't just about sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed.
Right.
It's bringing that same awareness to everything you do. Eating, walking, working, interacting with people.
So it's about being present in each moment.
Yes.
Not letting our minds race ahead or dwell on the past.
You got it. And that brings us to right concentration. The ability to focus your attention.
Yeah, okay.
To calm and quiet the mind. Allowing deeper insight, wisdom to emerge.
So meditation plays a role here too, right?
Absolutely. Through meditation, we train our minds to be more stable, concentrated, but it also shows up in other areas of life. Think about a musician, completely absorbed in their music, or an athlete, totally focused on their performance.
That's right.
Concentration in action.
So, right, concentration is about developing that laser-like focus, whether it's through meditation, creative stuff, or even our work. This is making a lot more sense. The Eightfold Path, it's not just some abstract philosophy. It's a guide to living a more fulfilling, meaningful life.
Exactly. And remember Subhata. His story shows that even someone who's been searching for years can find the path and transform in a short time. But before we get back to it, why don't we pause, reflect on what we've covered?
Yeah.
We talked about the nature of suffering, the Buddha's insight into its causes through dependent origination, and now the practical steps of the Eightfold Path. Amazing how these ancient teachings still feel so relevant today, right?
It's mind-blowing. But I gotta ask, if Subhata was able to achieve enlightenment so quickly after meeting the Buddha, does that mean the rest of us are just out of luck?
That's a great question, and one a lot of people have. Subhata's story is inspiring. But it's important to remember that every person's journey is unique. The key takeaway is that transformation is possible, no matter where you're starting from. And with the right understanding, effort, we can all experience a profound shift in our experience of life.
It's funny, right? We're talking ancient India teachings from, forever ago.
Yeah.
But it feels so relevant to my life now, especially with how fast everything is these days. So demanding.
It's almost like the more our world speeds up, the more we need those ancient practices to stay grounded.
Totally. But let's get back to Subhata. We left off with him joining the Sangha. What happened next? Did he really fast track to enlightenment?
He did. Subhata was so ready for this.
Yeah.
Threw himself into practice, completely dedicated.
Yeah. Okay.
The texts say he made crazy fast progress.
Hold on. How fast are we talking?
Get this. He attained full enlightenment, became an arahant, just moments before the Buddha passed away.
No way. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's wild. Talk about going out with a bang.
Right?
It's like the Buddha was passing the torch to his last disciple.
It's a powerful image, for sure. Really highlights the power of the path, even in a short time. But it's important to remember, Subhata's story, it's not like a benchmark for everyone.
Right.
The path is a journey, and everyone's journey is unique.
Yeah, that makes sense, but it's still inspiring. Knowing that kind of shift is possible, it gives me hope.
Absolutely. And that's the point of these teachings, to offer hope, to show us that freedom from suffering is possible, no matter who we are, where we're starting from.
Okay, so if we're not all going to reach enlightenment overnight, like Subhata, how do we actually apply this stuff in our world, What does walking the Eightfold Path actually look like day to day?
Well, think about the challenges you face.
Okay.
The stress, the anxiety, the feeling of being overwhelmed, all that, it's suffering, right?
Oh, tell me about it. Work, relationships, just trying to keep up with everything. It's like I'm barely keeping my head above water some days.
And I bet a lot of our listeners feel the same way. But here's where the Eightfold Path can help. Let's take right mindfulness, for example.
Okay.
In this hyper-connected world we live in, we're constantly bombarded with information, stimulation.
Yeah.
Phones buzzing, emails piling up, social media. It's exhausting.
Seriously, it's like I'm always plugged in.
Yeah.
My mind never gets a break.
And that constant mental chatter, that feeling of being pulled in every direction, it's a huge source of suffering. But right, mindfulness offers an antidote.
Okay.
It's creating space to just be present, to observe your thoughts, your feelings, without getting swept away by them.
So like finding the off switch for our brains.
Yeah. Easier said than done, though, right?
It's definitely.
It's a practice, takes time, takes effort. But even just a few minutes of meditation every day can make a huge difference. Just sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations in your body.
Yeah.
It helps you reconnect with yourself. Find some peace in the chaos.
I've tried meditation, but I always get distracted. My mind just won't shut up.
That's totally normal. The mind is like a wild monkey, swinging from thought to thought.
I like that.
But with practice, we can tame it. And mindfulness isn't just about formal meditation.
Right.
It's bringing that attention to everyday stuff.
Okay, so instead of like mindlessly scrolling through my phone while I'm in line somewhere, I could focus on my breath or how my feet feel on the ground.
Exactly. Finding those little pockets of presence throughout the day.
Yeah.
And that's where right effort comes in. It's choosing to cultivate those good qualities. Kindness, patience, generosity, and letting go of the not-so-good ones.
Right.
Anger, greed, jealousy.
I feel like that's a constant work in progress. Some days I'm zen, some days I'm a mess.
And that's perfectly okay. It's not about being perfect. It's recognizing when you've veered off course and gently steering yourself back.
So self-compassion is a big part of this too.
Huge. We got to be kind to ourselves on this journey.
Yeah.
And that kindness extends outwards. Right speech and right action remind us to treat others with respect, with compassion, even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard, right? It's easy to be kind when everyone's being nice, but what about when there's conflict or someone's being a jerk?
That's when these teachings are really put to the test.
Yeah.
But instead of reacting with anger, with aggression, we can try to respond with understanding, with compassion.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you're condoning bad behavior. It's recognizing that everyone's struggling and everyone deserves kindness.
I love that. It's like choosing to break the cycle instead of adding to it.
Yes. And this brings us back to right livelihood. Choosing work that aligns with your values contributes to a better world.
Yeah.
Asking yourself, how can I use my skills to make a positive difference?
You know, it's interesting. We've come full circle back to Subhata. He was searching for truth, for meaning, and he found it in the Buddhist teachings.
Right.
And here we are, all these years later, still grappling with those same big questions.
It speaks to how timeless these teachings are, doesn't it? The challenges of being human, they haven't really changed.
Yeah.
We're still searching for happiness, for freedom from suffering, for a sense of purpose.
And the Buddha offered a path, a way out. Not always easy, but it's always there.
It is. And maybe, just maybe, like Subhata, as we explore this path, we'll find that profound transformation is closer than we think.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. It's been an incredible journey exploring these teachings with you today. And to our listeners, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity. Maybe you'll try out some of these practices. See what insights and transformations come up in your own life.
It's been a pleasure. May we all find peace and liberation on the path.